Hey guys, um, today I'm doing some baking, so I thought I'd bring you along. It's Wednesday, and I'm cooking supper tonight. Tonight we're doing honey garlic shrimp over fried rice, um, and it's going to be awesome. But right now I'm making a pie crust. We're going to make an apple pie today. We may even do a pumpkin pie today, depending on my mood. But I'm at least going to do an apple pie. My family really likes apple pie. I like apple pie. It's good. Um, we're gonna make the dough from scratch. That's what we're gonna do right now. It's not hard. It's really easy. But it does take a little time because you gotta let it sit in the fridge after you get it all together. And it does kind of take uh, you have to look. All right, so I'm gonna make it in my food processor today. I don't know any other way to make pie crust. By the way, this recipe comes from Joya Baking. Stephanie Jaworski is the lady that does Joy Baking on YouTube. She also has a website. You should check it out. She's been doing pies, cakes, cookies, just all kinds of stuff that's not healthy for you, but tastes real good for about the last 10 years. I highly recommend you check out her website. Everything I bake and comes from her site. It's joyabaking.com for the website. It's Joya Baking is the name of her YouTube channel also. So anyhow, first thing you need, ingredients. Scales are so important. I already weighed out my ingredients. I'll give them to you. If you don't have a scale when it comes to weighing your ingredients for baking, get one. You get too far off, it can throw things out. But I'm going to give you both what it is, and then I'll give you the grams. And like I said, it's really simple. So in the food processor, we're going to put 2.5 cups of flour, which is 350 grams. 350 grams. Now, I have a small food processor, which is okay. It all fits. But it also has a tendency to throw flour everywhere, even with the lid on. If you override it a little bit. So you're gonna put your flour in first. You're basically gonna put all your dry ingredients in first, which is only 3 things. Literally, it's flour, sugar, and salt. And then we're gonna blend that together. Oh, I have to get the flour off my hands. Ugh. And wipe flour off the counter. Clean equipment is always good. Alright, so I also have 1 tablespoon of sugar and I got 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. You don't have to use kosher salt, you can use regular salt. It's just what I prefer to use, like I've said in previous videos, for cooking and baking. Now, I have found, oddly enough, that kosher salt, because it is a big grain salt, you might want to maybe run it through a blender and do a batch of it through a blender. Because we've found it doesn't matter. It seems like no matter how hard I mix and how much I try. Sorry, I'm doing dishes as I go. It's force of habit. I always end up with like a flake or two that doesn't dissolve into it. All right, so I've got my flour in here. I've got my salt, and I've got my sugar. 2.5 cups, 350 grams of flour. 1 tablespoon of sugar, which is 15 grams, and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, which is 4 grams. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pulse this real quick, and only about 15 times. Pulsing is just like a second at a time. Let me pulse this real quick, and I'll explain why. Okay, so the purpose of pulsing that all together is just to get it mixed up. That's all. So we just mixed it up. Now, the next thing we're going to add is 1 cup of unsalted butter. I've got the butter in the fridge still, and unlike most things when you bake, like cookies, cakes, and stuff, you want your butter and eggs and all that at room temperature. When making pie crust, you don't want it at room temperature. You want it as cold as you can get it. If you have to, put it in the freezer for a few minutes. My refrigerator stays incredibly cold. Let me go get it real quick. But my fridge stays incredibly cold, so I don't necessarily have to put it in the freezer. But you want to cut it into small chunks, because what we're going to do is we're going to put this in with the flour, and it's going to kind of not grind it up, but make it fine. You'll still want little chunks of butter in it. You're not looking to combine everything. And you want to blend this. You want to put it in kind of evenly, all right around. Make sure you drop at least 2 pieces on the floor, which is probably not good. That's okay. We'll go without it. Make sure I only drop one piece. Only drop one piece. Excellent. Oh, set that there. And then you're just going to pulse it again. And what you're going to want to do is, I'm going to run it on high or low. I know a combination of both. But you want to run it long enough that you get the consistency of kind of like a meal, like cornmeal or something like that. So it's ground up. You'll still see the little chunks, little bits of butter in it, but you won't. I'll show you. I'll show you what you should look like. All right. Well, I'm going to blend this because it's gonna be loud and it's gonna take a minute. So I'll be right back as soon as I get this all mixed up. Okay, we got it mixed up. Here's what it looks like. Kind of like cornmeal. It's not fine anymore. It's, doesn't look like flour anymore. It's got the butter chunks mixed up in it. And, you may find you have big bits of butter in there. And that's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So, this is not a flaky crust. Because we're not using shortening in it. If we wanted a flaky pie crust, we would use shortening. This is a good general all-purpose pie crust. I am not very experienced when it comes to pie crusts and bread and things like that. I just don't have, it's not that I don't have the patience for it, but like bread, it's kind of an all-day process because you knead it and you got to let it sit forever. Then you knead it and you got to let it sit forever. It tastes fantastic. It's just a lot of work, unless you have a bread machine. But this can be used with any fruit pie. It can be used with anything. We can make all kinds of stuff with it. Pecan pies, pumpkin pies, cherry pies, apple pies. If it's a fruit pie, this is your crust. And we're making enough to do the bottom crust and a top crust. It does that much. So when it's said and done, you can either do like 2 pumpkin pies with this recipe, or you could do 1 apple pie because it's got a top crust on it. Unless you do a Dutch apple pie and it's got a crumb crust, and then you can do 2 of them. But anyhow. All right, so this is the tricky part, is doing the putting the water in, because the last ingredient we have to do is water. And I got to find my 1/4 cup. There is my 1/4 cup to do it. So water-wise, it's got to be ice cold. Now, if you've got an ice maker or ice cubes, you can put some ice cubes in a measuring cup and then fill it up to a 1/2 cup. Because you're going to need between 1/4 and a 1/2 cup. It all depends on your flour. How much is it going to absorb? Because we're not going to turn this into a true dough. It's not like bread. So I don't have an ice maker. So what I did is I filled this up about 3/4 cup and I put it in the freezer. That way I got that nice layer of ice on the top and a little layer on the sides, and it's got all the water in the middle. And then I'm going to start with 1/4 cup. And I'm going to add that in there first. And then we're going to take a look at it. Because you want your end goal with the water is to get it so it doesn't form a dough ball, but if you mash it between your fingers, it'll hold. I'll show you. So we'll start with a 1/4 cup and put it in there. After this initial 1/4 cup, you want to do it like a teaspoon at a time. Yeah, because it's not going to take much after that 1/4 cup, if anything after that 1/4 cup. So let me get this on here. We'll get this rolling. let's see what we got going on. All right. So, looking at it, it's still kind of flaky. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. But I'll bring some over to you. If I take it and I press it between my fingers, see how it's all falling off into my other hand? Means it's not quite there yet. But it's getting close because it holds, but it's still a little dry. Yeah, you just don't want it saturated. So I am going to add some in, a teaspoon at a time. Let me grab a teaspoon real quick. And I'll put a teaspoon in and we'll mix it in a little bit more and we'll see where we're at. It does not take much, not at all, to do this. I mean, and if you overdo it, I don't know what you do if you overdo it. It's always easier to add a little bit at a time till you got it right than it is to add a lot and make it wrong. So. Mix that in real quick. I think we might be about there. Yeah, maybe one more teaspoon's worth. But we're getting there. Yep, I'm going to put in one more teaspoon. So, I mean, you can always add to it. And then the only steps after this we have to do is form it into a ball, cut it in half, put it in saran wrap, and then we got to let it sit in the fridge for an hour. So, but let me get this finished up real quick. Oh, yeah, there. Now we're in good shape. All right, so let me unplug. Always unplug your equipment when you're done using it. Don't leave it plugged in. That can be dangerous. Make some room here on the old countertop. Bring this over here. I'm literally just going to dump this on the countertop. And then I'm going to form it into a ball. Here, let me move you down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Right there. All right. So we're going to dump it on the countertop. Like such. Now, even if you got to this stage and you go, oh, I still didn't really add enough water, you know, that's okay. You can still add to it. Just put it on there a little bit at a time and mix it in. Yeah, you don't want to overwork it, but the reason why we're going to form this into a ball, I'm going to cut it in half, saran wrap it, we're going to put it in the fridge for an hour. And the reason why we want to do that is so the glutens, because there's glutens in here, they need to relax. If they don't relax, your dough will just continually snap back. It will fight you. And fighting your dough is never fun. So it gives it time to rest. And we've been sitting here spinning this around and working it, and that butter that's in there's gone soft. It's not melted soft, and it's still chunks, but it's gone soft. So we don't want it to be soft. We want it to be, you know, still a little chunky. But that your butter provides almost all your flavor in this crust. Yeah, so it's a nice buttery crust. It helps accent the flavor of whatever it is you're putting in, whether it's fruit or otherwise. All right, so we've got it into a ball. Like I said, I'm not a professional baker. I didn't go to school for this. And I've probably only made a half a dozen pies in my life. And that was all within the last few years. Chris initially was our pie maker, but I thought I would, you know, I always made cookies. I did a lot of the majority of our cookies, and she did cakes and pies. And then I found some interest in cakes and pies and thought, you know what, I'm going to give those a shot. You know, you can do anything if you put your mind into it. It's just like in the last video I was talking about. You know, put your mind to it. If you fail, it's okay, whatever. You know, try it again. You know, eventually you won't fail, and you'll be 10 times better at it than you ever thought you would be. we don't bake as much now as we used to. Okay, so I've got that into a nice round, and then I'm going to split it in half. So this is a pastry cutter. It's also a scraper. It does everything. If you have no other tool, accessory tool in your kitchen, this should be one of them. It's the greatest thing ever invented. They come in plastic. You can buy the plastic ones are cheap. The metal ones are a little more expensive, but they're still not expensive. But as far as things go, okay, so you use this. You're just going to split it. Now, we could have used the scale to weigh this, but I got a pretty good idea what half is, so I just went ahead and halved it. Now, on that same note, if you pick them up, they should feel about the same in weight. So, and they are. They're in good shape. So we're going to give these, I'm going to wrap these up in plastic wrap as soon as I get them back into ball form. And this dough is very forgiving if you screw up. So, if nothing else, if you've never made pie crust before, this is a good one to go. It's not hard. Like I said, it's not a flaky pie crust, but it is a good buttery pie crust. All right, so saran wrap, if I can get the door open. You ever have one of those drawers that you can't get open because there's something caught up in it? That was just now. Absolutely horrible. All right. Saran wrap. Now, before we put these in the saran wrap, before I wrap it, I'm going to go ahead and form it into a circle or a disc. What that does is when these come out of the fridge, they're going to be cold and they're going to be firm. But we'll get more to that after we do it. But if you put it in a disc, it kind of helps you towards the rolling process when it comes time to do that. So, got that done. We'll pick this up off the table, maybe. There we go. So yeah, scraper is great for everything. Now, when we go to roll these out, we will flour the counter. That way we don't have to. I'm literally going to put flour all over my counter. For those of you that have never seen pie crust made or bread or anything like that. All right, so I'll do the other one up here off camera, but that's essentially what you're looking for is a dough disc, and then what we're going to do, I'll put it in the fridge for an hour, and when we come back, we'll roll it out. Hopefully I did it right and got enough water in it. All right, I'll see you here after shortly. Okay, so I let the dough rest for an hour in the fridge, and this is kind of cool. I'll show it to you. So if you look on the dough, see the light spots that are on there, like right in there? That's the butter. It got cold again. That's the flavor. That's where we want to see. So don't sweat that. Things you'll need. Something to dust off flour with. Flour. I've got a bowl of it sitting here. No specific amount. You want it to put on your countertop. Rolling pin of any sort. So what you'll do is, I already started rolling this one a little bit, is you'll put your flour down. I wanted to see if it was warm enough, or warm enough to roll. And then you're gonna put your pie crust down on top of the flour. Flour your rolling pin so you don't want it to stick, because it can stick. Now, if your dough's too cold, if you go to roll it and it's too cold, that's okay. Just let it sit on the counter for 5 minutes or so till it warms up a little bit. And then you're gonna take it, you're gonna roll, you're gonna spin. Start in the middle. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I've got a giant crack. Here, I'll bring you over real quick so you can see. I got a giant crack right there. So all you got to do to fix that is just push it together. Now, it could be I didn't have quite enough water in the dough and when it firmed up, but cracking's okay. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. All you have to do is just push it back together. All right? And that's going to happen. Making dough is not, it's an art as much as it is a science. You know, it's like when you go to put the water in, you know, you don't know exactly how much water to put in. And if need be, when I get it rolled out, if I have to add a little water to it still, we can. It's not unheard of. But when you start rolling, you don't have to press hard. Start in the middle. And as you roll it, turn it. That way, I mean, A, you get your circle. B, oh, there's the oven. While you're doing this, preheat your oven. For the apple pie, in this case, it's 400 degrees. And like I said, it will crack. You know, turning it also helps it from sticking. So when it cracks like that, just push it back together. You know, like I said, I'm not the best I'm not a pastry chef. You know, I screw up. I don't add things, but screwing up's okay. It teaches you how to fix things. You know, just like if your dough happens to start sticking to the counter, just add a little more flour. It's okay. And we'll take it from there. You know, and you just roll. If you want to know for sure how big to roll your dough, you know, I'll show you. Oh, we got a giant tear going in this one. That's all right. Hey, you guys will get to see me screw up too. Just remind you, I'm human. I'm not a robot from the planet Zorg. Or whatever. I'm currently watching classic sci-fi movies. This one's on Hypnosis. I don't remember what the name of it is. I just remember it's from the 50s. So you put the dough back together. Like I said, if you have to, add a little water to it. Not a big deal. You know, get it out. And then if you want to check to see where you need to be, where you need to go, yeah, I don't think I got enough water in this. That's all right. I'll show you, like I said, I'll show you how to fix it. It's not hard. So we're going to do it after we put it in the pie pan. But you want to do your best version of a circle. It's okay if the edges aren't perfect or they're a little cracked, just due to the fact that we're going to cut off part of it anyhow. So you're going to take your pie pan to give you an idea how big you want to go. And you want to set it on top of your dough. And you should have about an inch all the way around. And we're not quite there yet. When you roll your dough, you want to start in the center. You want to turn your dough. And what I'm doing now is just fixing the ends. So that way I know I got a circle. But what happens, and everybody at one time or another makes this mistake, especially in the beginning. I still do it because, like I said, I'm not perfect at this. But, you know, my dough was cold. It appears to be a little dry. But when you roll, don't roll all the way out. Because what happens is you're putting pressure on it, and the pressure seems to get more, well, you have less to work with at the end. So what happens is you got an uneven crust. Is what happens. And so you'll be like real thin out here on the outside and thick on the inside. So, and you go about an inch out over the size of the pan, so that way, because you're going to tuck it into the pan. Yeah. All right, here. Let me reset my camera up so you can see what I'm doing a little closer. That way we can take it from there. I'll be right back in just 1 second. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. So, we got our pan rolled, we got our dough rolled out, got our pan on here, and then we're at least an inch all the way around. So, here's where this tool comes in handy. You're gonna go through, brush off the flour, Because what happens when you get too much, say hey, you get too much flour in there, it can make your dough taste a little weird. So this is the part I still need a lot of practice with. I gotta transfer this onto this pan. So here's what I've been practicing. She went outside for a second. I lay my rolling pin on there, and then just ever so lightly, you don't want to like press it on there. And as we go, we're gonna knock this as much of this extra flour off as we can. Nope. I'm not going to get it all off, but I should get most of it off. Yeah, like I said, it can make it not cook right. It can do all kinds of. I don't remember exactly all it can do, but I know it can do weird things. So you want to get as much of the extra flour off as you can. And once you get it off. Yep. Wow. And we're cracking. Of course. This helps if you have like a solid wooden rolling pin. Move that flour out of the way. Set the pan down there. And then we're just going to roll it onto the pan. Like I said, this is the part I'm not so good at. Is that right there. After that, we're good. Alright, so we got it in here. Next thing we want to do, this is the important part, is you're going to tuck this down, and you want to use your finger. See how like we had there's a crack right there? I don't know if you can see it. Right there. Remember, there's one there and one there. So all you have to do to fix that is just press it together. It's okay if your pie crust isn't perfect, especially if it's going on the bottom. That's no big deal. I mean, even if it's going on top, it's going to taste good. And everything takes time and practice. If you don't do it right the first time, it's okay. I mean, good God, it's not like I've made a lot of pies, and yet I'm willing to jump on YouTube and show the world that I'm not the best pie maker in the world. I mean, it turns out good. The recipe is solid as far as taste goes. But like I said, it's as much as an art form as it is, kind of a science, working the numbers, so to speak. All right, so we're going to leave this crust on here. And then I am going to, I didn't go all the way around. I didn't get it together. And then I'm going to go ahead and roll out the other crust. Now, I've already got the pie filling made. Oh, let me adjust the camera so I can talk to you. All right, but that's our pie crust. That's our bottom pie crust. Now, if you were doing a pumpkin pie, you would simply just crimp your edges so it looks nice and fancy. Or you can fold them under, which is probably what I'm going to do with this pie. I just got to get the second one on there. Cut your edges, and then you're done. Put your pie filling in, cut your edges, good to go. It goes in the oven for whatever temperature you cook pumpkin pies at. I don't remember right offhand. But since we have a second layer to do, I'll do that. But hold on for me 1 second. Let's talk about the pie filling for a second. All right, so pie filling. I pre-make my pie filling. We can it. It is right here. This is my pie filling. And the recipe for that pie filling, I have not done a video on it as of yet, but if you want to, because I just learned how to make pie filling this last year. Rose Red Homestead, the same lady that did the video on botulism. It is her pie filling recipe. So realistically, none of this is family, done by like my great-great-great-grandmother. No, my pie crust recipe is from Joy of Baking, and my pie filling recipe is from Rose Red Homestead. Um, which, if you would like, we'll leave a link to both of those in the description down below. And all I do is I literally open up this can right here. I dump it in. 1 quart will give me a pie. And then I'm going to roll out this other pie dough, put it on top of it, and cut some slits in it, and then crimp the edges. I'll bring you back after I get the other dough rolled out and the pie filling. I'll bring you back to show you the pie filling and putting the crust on the top, and we'll cut the slits in it. All right, so you can watch me screw that up too. But we'll have fun doing it. That's the important thing. Have fun, try, keep practicing. Like I said, nobody's a pastry chef overnight. Lord knows I'm not a pastry chef overnight. I've been doing this for a little while, but I still don't do it right. Yeah, I've not made a bunch of pies, but pastries take practice, and they're fun. I mean, they really are. They're easy. You just got to practice. All right, I'll be right back as soon as I get all this taken care of. Okay, so I got the other one rolled out. Now we just got to put the pie filling in and put that bad boy on top. If you ever go to start canning, which I hope you do, because it's awesome, invest in one of these. They're like $1. It's an old school can opener. You use it to like pop a can opening. We always used them growing up for Hawaiian punch. Because back in the day, orange juice and Hawaiian punch came in jars or in cans, literally in cans, and you had to open them up with one of those. You can also use it for like tomato juice, things like that. Because that still comes in cans, or tomato sauce if you don't have a can opener and you're in a hurry. But it has a pointy side, which is what you use to poke holes in cans with, and then it has a square side, which you use to open up these jars, which is pretty awesome. All right, so got the pie filling in there. Awesome stuff. See, told you, 1 quart, 1 pie. I would not lie to you about such important things in life. So you want to get it in there even. I'm telling you, this is some of the best pie filling. It's just pretty much standard pie filling. Like I said, you can get it off the Rose Red YouTube channel, or I'm pretty sure the ball recipe is the exact same. You'll find a lot of people who do canning use ball recipes for just about everything. All right, so set that aside. Same process with the top dough as the bottom dough. You'll set your put your dough on your rolling pin lightly. Get off as much of the excess flour as you can while you roll it out, or roll it up onto here, and then that way, you don't have all that flour in it. All right, so we got that on there. Oh, got a whole bunch of flour on there. Got that. We're going to set it over top of this one and lay it down on just like that. All right, now next thing we want to do is wipe up this flour real quick. Give me like 2 seconds to destroy my kitchen. And baking is a messy process, but sometimes it's fun. That's what makes it fun. Remember that scraper I was telling you about earlier? I'm telling you, it is the most versatile tool in the kitchen, and even the metal one's only like $5. I think they're like 89 cents if they're plastic. If you have a restaurant kitchen wholesaler that's in your area or nearby you or online, I recommend for like small wares, rubber spatulas, spoons, things you cook with, try and go through them. You can usually get a much better deal. Most of them are public. Not all of them, but most of them are public, or sold to the public. We've got a couple of them here in the central Ohio area. I know this only because I work in the restaurant industry. Um, but they both sell to the public, and that's where I get a lot of my small wares, my scrapers, spatulas, rubber, wood, and otherwise. Um, if you want serving spoons or like cooking spoons, things like that, uh, it's a great place to get them at a reasonable price. Containers for holding things like Lexons, or I don't want to say Tupperware containers, although they carry stuff similar to that, but they carry storage containers. Oh, I mean, just if it's in the kitchen, they carry it. And like I said, you can usually get it a little cheaper. Okay, so excuse me. We got the lid on the pie, and there's a million different ways to crimp this. One thing I didn't do that I got to do real quick. Okay, so to hold this dough together, you got a couple different things you can do on the edges, and I did not do it either of them. You can take some water, which is what I'm doing now. Some people use egg wash, which is great. You can use egg wash. Some people even brush egg wash over this. But you need something to kind of glue this together with other than you pinching it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some water and I'm putting it around the edge. Like I said, you can also use an egg wash, and an egg wash is nothing more than the yellow part of the egg. You're going to take the yolk of the egg and beat it up real good, and then do exactly what I'm doing now. You're going to take a brush, preferably a kitchen brush. If you don't have one of these, we at one time, for the longest time, depending on what you're doing, especially if you're just baking, a good nylon brush, a painter's brush, works just as well. Just don't use it don't go painting your house and then try to use it in your kitchen. That's a little much. So you're going to press that together like that. And then we need to take a knife and we're going to cut off a majority of the excess. I'm going to take it right. We're going to fold it down so that way I know where the edge is. And then we're going to just cut off the excess. That cut off. One of the cool things about cooking, even making pastries like pies and cakes and cookies, which I absolutely love making cakes and cookies. Pies I like to make too. Like I said, I just don't do a lot of them, so I don't make it look quite as easy as the others. Now, like some people will take this extra dough here and they'll roll it back out, and they'll take little star cookie cutters, which I don't have, and they'll make little stars to put on here. We're just simply going to pinch, if I can figure out how to do it, pinch the edges. I'm probably screwing this all up, but lift it up, pinch, lift it up, pinch, all the way around. I would have Chris come in and demonstrate this, but she is busy working hard, so we don't have to today. And like I said, I'm probably not doing this right, but the point is you just wanted to get it together. And between the water and the and pinching it like this, it'll hold. Yeah, or you can use the egg wash to hold it together. Like I said, I just use water only because I'm not going to use the egg for anything else. So it would really be, in my mind, a waste of an egg. So not when the whole purpose is for it to taste like apples, not like eggs. So water it is. All right, so we got that done. Now, the very last thing we have to do before we put it in the oven is we have to make some vent holes. This has to vent. So I am just going to put a handful of slits in this one. I mean, now you could get fancy and, do like 4 little circles in the middle and, stuff like that. And that would be cool. That's fine. But the couple of pies I've made, I just did slits on the top, and they turned out just as fine and just as golden brown. The whole point is to get it to vent. That's the important part. So we'll get the slits in here. All right, so let's talk about baking this. All right, so this apple pie has got to go in the oven, and it's got to go in for at a 400 degree oven, and we're going to let it ride for about 45 minutes. Now, start checking it at about 35 or about 40, but it should take about 40 to 45 minutes. Your oven may vary a little on that. Yeah, and depending on what type of oven you have and how your oven bakes, like I know our oven, it has a tendency to run a little warm. I mean, it runs at 450 or 400, which is what I have it at now. But where it is a convection oven, which means the air circulates around inside the oven, it has a tendency to cook a little quick, and it has a tendency to burn on top. So we're going to take aluminum foil. We're going to lay it over top of it. That way it doesn't over brown the top before the bottom cooks. Make sure you put it about on the middle rack. But like I said, your oven, or this will help you to get to know your oven. And we'll take it from there. All right. When you turn your oven on, turn it on to 400 degrees. You'll hear it like we heard it beep a few minutes ago. You have to let your oven cycle at least once through. So let it, heat up, it beeps, or however your oven lets you know it's there. And then you'll let it'll start to cool down a little bit, and then it'll heat back up to 400. That's how ovens operate. So you want it to cycle through once or twice. That's why it's good to turn it on when you first start baking. It'll make your kitchen a little warm. In the wintertime, you'll appreciate that, but you let it cycle, and that way the whole oven's the same temperature. You can have cold spots. So my pie is going to go in the oven for 45 minutes. I'll check it at about 35 minutes because I know mine bakes about 5 minutes faster than what the recipe calls for. So I'll check it 35, 40, see where we're at, see how it looks. Remember, the filling's already done, so you're just baking the crust basically with the pie in it. And get it in the oven halfway through, about 20 minutes in, turn the pie. All right. Oh, very important part, because this is a liquid pie and it likes to boil. Liquids like to boil. It's going to want to steam. That's why you put the vent holes in it. Put it on a pan rack, a pan, like a cookie sheet. Or in this case, we're going to use a broiler pan, but it'll work all the same. Point being is you want it to not, when it spills over, you don't want it to get all over your oven, because they do have a tendency to boil over. It's the nature of a pie. So, got it in the oven, 400 degrees. I am going to put my timer on for 20 minutes. That way, when it goes off, I know to turn it, and then I'll put it on for another 20 minutes, and then that way I can check it. All right. Well, we'll come back here in about 45 minutes, and we'll see how either bad I did or how good we did. You never know. All right. I'll see you here in a second. All right, guys. I let it bake for 45 minutes, and in that 45-minute time, my wife, Chris, whipped up a lemon meringue pie because she just needs to outdo me and everything. She's 10 times better than I am. But here's how our pie turned out right here. Lighting's horrible, too much light, but I can't change that. There we go. Right there's our apple pie. I did, before I put it in the oven off camera, we quickly sprinkled some sugar on it. Now, remember how I was always telling you to be prepared, make sure you got everything before you start. I was not prepared. We didn't have any aluminum foil, and I didn't know it. It got used up. I forgot. So what we did was put a pie ring on it, which browned the edges nicely without them burning. But I used another pie pan to put on top of it and left it on there a hair too long, so it didn't get an even browning, but that's okay. It's still going to be delicious. Like I said, this is how you learn. Next time I make it, I know. Don't leave the pie pan on so long or have aluminum foil. All right, so let's go ahead and cut us a piece. We'll see what it tastes like, and we'll take it from there. I'm sure, yeah, and the crust I can already tell is incredibly flaky. I know, being quiet while I cut, but the first piece is always the biggest pain in the butt. All right, got a plate, some fine paper china, and the pie scooper thingy. All right, pie scooper thingy, very important. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Definitely a good looking pie. Filling looks nice. Crust looks good. It's done all the way through. It's kind of flaky. It's got a bit of flake to it. That's all right. I'm gonna try it even though and so I can tell you it's delicious, but I already know it's delicious because this isn't the first time we've made this pie. And like I said, you can't screw it up. The crust is super easy. Yeah, it's really good. It still tastes like a hot apple pie. Now, I did let it sit on the cooling rack for about a half hour after I took it out of the oven. You don't want to serve it hot. You got to give it time for things to cool down and even out. Always let your food rest for a minute, then you can taste it. But in the pie's case, if I had pulled that out when it first came out of the oven, all that filling would have ran all over my plate. What was in the pan would have ran in the pan. All right, well, I hope you try the apple pie. It's a great recipe. The pie crust recipe is. The apple pie itself, the filling itself, like I said, go to Rose Red Homestead. I will leave a link to her pie filling down below. She cans it, but you can use it fresh. Hands down, or you may have a pie filling of your own. I just really want you to try this pie crust. But I'll leave you a link for both of them. You can use my description of the pie crust if it flows for you and you understood it. But I will leave you the one for the Joy of Baking. And I really want you to check out her website and or her page and her website. And Rose Red Homestead, I great YouTube channel and a resource for canning. You can never have too many resources. All right, I love you guys. Tell somebody else you love them, and it'll make their day a little better, I promise. All right, love you. Talk to you later. Bye.